Don't forget to follow us on social media for beautiful food and inspiration.
See the same people every other day, but we never say hey, cause we're never looking the way, or my face was in my notebook. We passed each other, didn't look. But these are the people of the towns, of the towns, the towns, of the towns. And large cities are just a bunch of big small towns, overlapping side by side, big small towns. I see new people every day. Everyone's on their way, doing the things that fill their day. And I'm going places too, doing the things that I do with my time. We are the people of the towns, of the towns, the towns, of the towns. And large cities are just a bunch of big small towns, diagonal, top to bottom, big small towns. Be nice to the people of the towns. Once in a while look around, cause what's going around's coming around. What came around's coming around. What's going around's coming around. Big, 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 small towns. Word gets around in the big small towns. Big, 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 small towns. Word gets around in the big small towns. Big, 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 small towns. Word gets around the big small towns.
Hey everybody, welcome to Downballot. We do this show live every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, right here on Twitch, twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're following the podcast, and I don't know, text the podcast to your friend. Just text them that Apple Podcast or Spotify link or whatever. Send them to our website, echoplexmedia.com. And I don't know, give us money, patreon.com/Echoplex. People at $5 and up on there get the entire audio capture of all of our podcast recording sessions. So that's Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday night, plus bonus material. And we're not actually paywalling an MP3 over $5. You can email us if you want any of the shows, and I'll just mail you a link to the MP3. You're mostly doing Patreon to support us. I'm producer Dave. You can find me on Grindr.
This is the Councilman. You can find me on Twitter at @THE_Councilman. And obviously always loving up on producer Dave. And thank you so much for all the magnanimous treatment of our follower, our listener, our viewer. We thank you all for coming, all three of you. And we really hope that we bring you some entertaining tidbits and a little bit of value every Tuesday night with our local experience here. Please stay tuned for Local Love after Down Ballot. Producer Dave, any announcements about Local Love this evening?
Yeah, we have a live performance and interview with the name escapes me. I guess you'll just have to stay tuned to check that out or download the pod if you're checking out the Down Ballot pod. That's
a cool band name. The name escapes me. I think that would be a pretty cool band name.
Man, I've just been busy today and I just haven't had a lot of time to do a lot of thinking. Thanks for taking care of the show prep.
I'm in the same boat. But thank you for all your support as always as well.
So either next week or maybe as a bonus sometime this week, we're going to go over the candidates forum for the San Jose mayor. We'll have some thoughts. But this week, what do we have for leading off, Councilman?
Well, proving once again that all politics are local, I thought we would grab this video that I found randomly on YouTube searching for local news about politics here in the Bay Area. This is actually from Grosse Pointe, Michigan, which was made famous by Grosse Pointe Blank, right? The film with John Cusack. So this is a school board meeting in Grosse Pointe, as you can see, very well attended. And apparently this educator was resigning from working in the district and wanted to let the board know sort of why and what he thought about the state of the district. So this is his resignation speech, as it were, to this enormous crowd at the board meeting.
Sean McCarroll. I'm a teacher over at North, and I live down in the park. Last year, I participated in a professional development session during our November PD Day. Offered by Beaumont, we were strongly encouraged to go. The topic was how to triage after the event of a school shooting. During that session, I learned and even practiced on a dummy how to pack a bullet wound and apply a tourniquet to prevent blood loss in our students. I also, to my horror, learned that if my students were to get shot in the chest, I should leave them for dead and assist those who had a better chance of survival. Now, I find it interesting. The district sponsored that for us and trusts us, the teachers, who have no medical training in any capacity to be the first responders to our students' medical needs in the event of a school tragedy. Trust us to literally choose and decide who would live and die, while you don't even trust us with the educational decisions that are in the best interest of our students, the thing that we've been hired to do. The teachers in this district are experts in education. We've been highly trained through advanced degrees and years of experience to make the best educational decisions for our students. I have 10 years of experience, 2 postgraduate degrees in education. I'm a licensed K-12 administrator and a district level department chair. I'm more qualified to make educational decisions for our students. Except for one person, everybody here has less experience or actual knowledge of what life is like in our classrooms. Like you've done to my colleagues, you've disregarded my experience, my professionalism, and my expertise and reality and substituted it with your fantasies. You're listening to them. They don't know what happens in our classrooms. They're not there, and neither are you. You sit up on this stage, which, by the way, I hope you enjoy the space you have here. This does not exist in our classrooms. And you tell us after your meetings that you so appreciate and respect us. Well, I cry bullshit. You don't respect us. If you respected us, you'd listen to us. You don't appreciate us. If you did, you wouldn't make our jobs literally impossible to do. If you cared, you would pretend that you're listening, at least. I sent you an email months ago expressing my concern about our full face-to-face return, and I didn't get a single response from any of you, not one, not even a message received. I helped get many of you elected to this board, and you couldn't even be bothered to hit reply. If you actually respected me and my colleagues, you'd prove it with your actions. Instead, you'll make your vote tonight, basically a foregone conclusion because you're trying to ram it through in a single meeting, and then you'll get to the end of the meeting where you say that you do respect us. Last time we were here, John told you that teachers were angry. You could probably tell that was true. He said, though, that it wasn't about any decisions at the board level. It was the situation. We're not angry about the situation. We can't control COVID. We're angry at you. We are angry at you. And angry is a nice way of putting it. You've done more damage to our students, our district, and our profession in the last 12 months than we've seen in the last decade. Keep going down this path, and I'll be surprised if our #1 teachers even stick around. I know I'm not. I submitted my resignation to 389 last week, and I'm looking forward to doing something that's going to be valued and appreciated, not lied to and belittled. Listen to your teachers. We're #1 in spite of this board, not because of it. If you trust us to plug a bullet wound, you should trust us with this.
That's 3 minutes.
How many teachers need to leave before you start to listen?
Well, that's fantastic. I like him.
You've reached your 3 minutes.
Well, I mean, 3 minutes is 3 minutes. Like that's fine. That guy crammed a lot into those 3 minutes.
He absolutely did. I just love the disembodied voice of the board chair. You've reached your 3 minutes. He just laid it on there, and every word that guy said is 100% true, I'm sure, in his district, and it is 100% true in many, 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 many districts, school districts throughout the country, especially here at home. I can point to, I used to work at a school district. I know I've heard this exact rant, this exact diatribe before, and I don't mean to belittle or make it sound negative. I'm incredibly supportive. I come from a family of teachers. This is absolutely true. This is what's happening. The folks who are elected to lead these school boards have no earthly idea what they're doing. They have no experience in education. A lot of times they are parents who have kids in the district, and suddenly they're very concerned about what's going on in the district. A lot of the times they are people who are looking for a higher office one day, and this is where they think they can start their political career, despite the fact that they're making multi-million-dollar decisions that impact thousands of children's lives and families' lives every single day. They don't know what they're doing. So it's no surprise that, unfortunately, they don't give the freedom and the creativity over to their teachers to do what they are trained to do, which is educate our kids. They try to meddle, or they just don't do much of anything at all. And we end up in a self-perpetuating cycle where the public education system cannot improve and cannot evolve because of this incalcitrance from elected officials who are chosen by us, the people, right? The parents who get so fired up about every little thing. And because of that, there's a huge demand from the same parents to have an exodus to charter schools, or to create new environments where they can test and experiment and do new things, or send their kids to private school if they have the wherewithal, right? And slowly but surely, you deteriorate the traditional public school system to the point where it's non-recognizable, and really the only people getting a good education are those who can afford to send their kids to private schools. Because charter schools will go down with the public school districts that they're created in. They're still dependent on that funding. They're still dependent on those students and all the resources. That's why charters are so nefarious, because they're sucking up public resources when they could be, these programs that they're doing could be implemented in all classrooms. Like this teacher is saying, he desperately wants to be creative and to be in charge of of his own destiny in terms of teaching his kids and doing what's best for them. But we just don't let them do that. And unfortunately, that's if we don't learn to respect teachers and let them do their job, but also pay them to do their job, pay them better to do their job, we're just going to see this deterioration occur.
So he didn't specifically say it, but he's talking like when he's like, "You're not letting me do my job, and you expect me to triage during a school shooting, but you're not letting me actually teach." He's like probably alluding to person after person after person after person who's come up there and complained about the way history is being taught, calling it critical race theory, the way that COVID was responded to by the school district, learning about gay people and then sex education. He was probably alluding to all of that when he said, "You're not letting us do our jobs," right?
Yes and no. I mean, this actually predates COVID, where there have been a lot of advancements in education in terms of the teaching profession. They just in terms of different ways of teaching, right? Different ways of looking at things, so it's not so rudimentary as it was before, right? And all these things that people are clamoring for, right? Some evolution in education. Well, that's all been happening at the thought level amongst teachers and educators. Unfortunately, that has never been implemented really in the classroom, and you just have the same rote learning to the test kind of model over and over again. So that's kind of what he's referring to, is that that's institutional. There is definitely the more recent factor of what he's talking about when he's alluding to with the triage in terms of school shootings and things of this nature, right? He's expected to, in the event of a school shooting, to defend his students' life or limb, but they won't let him do his job of actually educating them the other days when there isn't a school shooting happening on campus.
Are there districts where the school board is handled differently, where there are educators from the district sitting in seats on the school board?
If they're elected, that's the thing. You have to get elected. In some cases, yes, there definitely are educators. Like I know a number of districts. The districts I used to work at least one of the board members now was a former educator, or a current educator, I should say. In fact, the head of the teachers union in his own district, which is not the district he works in, it's the district he lives in. So it does occur, but never. It's usually not a majority of the board, and a lot of the times, once these folks get on the board, it just they become stuck in the system in a way. Like they may come on saying they're gonna go hell and high water and change things, and then they get just completely stuck. And
maybe my question was too vague. I meant to ask: Are there school boards where the paradigm is different, where it's not necessarily a political position being on the school board, but more like a committee of educators who are in the school system, who are not elected, but are on like some sort of panels, or where they make decisions for the school district in a different way that is not politicized? Do you know if anything like that exists out there?
In a public school system, I would imagine not. I can't say for sure, but I would imagine not, simply because if there are public dollars being spent, you're almost assured there's going to be an elected body of some sort that we have the people can vote in and out, that's there to govern that, right, those expenses. The problem is that it's just hard for employees, educators to have real substantial voices on those boards, right, because it's also hard to get elected, and teachers don't make a lot of money.
And the other thing is, the public's going to get mad if the teachers are going in there every week and taking up, because the public thinks it's their time, and they're probably going to get pissed off if the teachers come up and say, well, the last person said this, and here's what's really going on. Here's why we don't do it that way. And the public would probably be livid if every time they came into the school board to air their grievances, some teacher came up and explained how it works, or even just some school administrator, like the assistant principal from one of the schools, goes, I can't believe we're having this discussion. Here's why the community would be livid if that happened, I believe, because the kind of people who go in there are there to air their grievances without pushback.
Well, don't get me started on sort of the negative reputation and slander that's been happening for teachers unions. Honestly, for teacher labor unions, right? They actually encourage their members to go into school board meetings and speak up. And it can be really effective. They can be really effective, but they've got such a negative reputation now because they do a lot of political spending, and they are very political bodies, that it's almost like a bad word or something to be involved with the union, or to be there representing the union. So there aren't a lot of opportunities. There are like advisory boards, right? Like every district has educator advisory boards. They've got school site councils, and then they've got more district level councils of educators, administrators, classified workers, like the folks in the office, the folks who are serving the food, the folks who are cleaning the facility, right? They're all engaged in some way in some sort of advisory capacity, but how much that trickles up, the information trickles up to the board, and then how much the board actually acts upon it. The trickle up is a factor of the superintendent usually, and the people in charge, the admins in charge, the ones that are hired and fired by the board. And they can control the information. They can control the trickle of information up the ladder. And that prevents the board from acting because they may not know something's a problem. But boards just tend to want to just hold the line while they're on the school board, so that they're either reelected or they are elected to the next thing up. Or they're just solely focused on one thing. They're a parent and they have a focus on the dress code. They ran for school board because, they don't like the school district's dress code because of how it impacted their student. Right. And that's it. And once they're done with that, they don't really check out. They don't really give two shits about anything else that's going on.
So this seems
they punch the clock, and
we're gonna probably have to move on in a second here. Maybe we can do after the election. Maybe we can do one focused on school boards education, and
for sure,
kind of give some of our thoughts on that. But maybe my closing thought here is, I think that it might be time for the education system in this country to, like, first and foremost, reevaluate the structure and the way that we do the school board itself. Because we talk about this on our Wednesday show all the time, that and it's not in the same context, but that you have these people that are like talking outside of their realm of expertise, and they have power. These people we talk about on Wednesday have power because they're popular, but they're talking about things that they don't have any expertise on. And it seems like we have this problem in the school board too, where just some concerned parent runs, and I mean, good for them, whatever, you get them. And I think a lot of people do this with the best intentions, but I think a lot of them do it, like what you said, because of a bugaboo. And I think it might be time for us as a society to stop electing the school board. I know the teachers already have a lot on their plate, but if it was like a rotating panel of teachers and school administrators that were deciding on policy for the district, where it was like opt-in, volunteer, I feel like we would just have like like when people come in and say crazy things at these school boards, there would be somebody on that panel who can address the crazy thing that person said. You know, be respectful if at all possible, but that we could have people up there who are doing the job and explaining to the person who comes up and doesn't like the dress code. They're like, I don't like the dress code either, but here's the logic behind the dress code.
Yeah. And in theory, like, staff's all there and can be called upon at any time by the board to come up to the podium if they happen to be there, right, and respond to these things. But you're right. It has to be on the dais, right? Like a lot of school boards have like a student rep, right? They elect like the sort of de facto student reps, right? And they sit there and they listen to everything. They're not like jumping in and causing
that student rep should get to vote.
Right. They don't get a vote, right? They just sit there and listen. And then maybe they're feisty, maybe they're not, but they are not really doing it anything during the meeting because they don't really feel it's their place and they're not really given the space to anyway. And that's why they don't feel it's their place probably. But I have served on, real quick before we move on, I have served on boards where, for example, like the art commission, right? There was a public art committee that I served on. And not that I'm an expert on public art. I know a thing or two, but I'm certainly not an expert. However, we had commissioners on there. None of us had, lived experience in public art, but we also had in an advisory capacity right there with us on the dais, an artist, an architect, a developer, people who have the lived experience and the expertise, so that we could use them to do just what you said, right? If someone came in and said, this is a crazy idea, kids are going to jump all over this, right? The architect can come in and say, no, we can do this and that and the other thing to make sure it's safe, right? So the more you have the voices right up there on the dais, on the platform, at the podium, instead of at the podium, called upon to explain themselves, right? You elevate them to that level, you give them the respect they deserve, and you listen to them. That's what could really move the needle.
Yeah, I just noticed that like during even the Shasta Board of Supervisors meetings, sometimes the county lawyer will just jump in and be like, we can't do that. That's illegal. Right? Like what you're suggesting is illegal. And I figure if the county board of supervisors for Shasta County, where half the fucking place believes in chemtrails, can have somebody up there who can just inject some like reality into it. I figure school boards across the nation can do it. But I also think that more structural change is necessary in the school boards after what we've seen, because I don't want activist parents or activists who aren't even parents who have like a societal bone to pick with people like me a lot of the time, just for existing and being a gay. I don't want them on the fucking school board. Yeah.
They don't want them gender neutral bathrooms.
So we're going to have to move on to winners and losers. This is going to be a shortened version of winners and losers. What do we got first?
Well, following up on a story from last week, just so we can make sure we're following up for you here on Downballot, because we like to follow up. Protesters are now taking to the streets because the council members who were embroiled in that Los Angeles scandal around the racist recordings, well, a couple of them, the dudes, wouldn't you know it, did not follow the suit of the female council president who resigned her office, and do so as well. And they are holding out, trying to see if they can outlast the turmoil. So now protesters are coming to one of the council members' home and camping out and demanding that he get out of office.
Our top story tonight, 1 week after the city council's secret audio scandal that rocked LA. Well, the fallout does continue, and tonight protesters camped outside of Kevin De Leon's home demanding he resign. We have KCAL 9's Joy Benedict live in Eagle Rock tonight, Joy, where demonstrators say they won't leave until a city councilman steps down.
I worked yesterday morning.
Oh my God.
That's right, Leslie. That's what folks here are saying. And they've actually been here since yesterday. I mean, take a look at this crowd. It showed up last night here in Eagle Rock, and they are camped out.
They got coffee.
They are staying until they get the resignation from Kevin De Leon.
I got snacks.
It's been quite a week, from anger to tears.
I'm a dad who loves his son in ways that words cannot capture.
As the nation heard the audio recording of 3 city council members making racist slurs during a strategy meeting about redistricting, much of the hate targeting council member Mike Bonin's young black son.
There was a hurt and a pain that came from that. I'm a mother, and so what Nuri Martinez said about that black baby boy, that hurt my heart.
Saturday, members of Black Lives Matter started camping out near council member Kevin De Leon's home.
We're going to camp out until Kevin De Leon gets out of City Council.
Council President Nuri Martinez first stepped down to take a leave of absence and then resigned. This group wants the two other council members present during that recording, De Leon and Gil Cedillo, to follow suit.
What Kevin said about Black Power and really the diminishment of Black Power, saying that the Black Power movement, the work that we're doing around Black liberation and freedom is just 25 Black people yelling, that hurts. But we also need to think about what it means that they were conspiring in a room together.
Saturday, members of the Oaxacan community took to the streets demanding resignations as well. And Sunday, activists in South LA demanded a Black council president be chosen on Tuesday and said De Leon and Cedillo, if they haven't resigned by then, should lead the charge.
You have a chance now to reach out. You have a chance now to undo some of the damage that you did. You have a chance now to actually make a difference. So don't blow it.
We need to think who's the best person forward when it comes to healing these divisions. And everybody's going to have a slightly different take on this.
Political analyst Jessica Levinson says the issue isn't just about who is the temporary president of the council, since this week has clearly shown the world that there was a lot of work to be done to heal this city.
We'd love to see Mike Bonin in that seat, right? We'd love to see, he's the only council member who by choice chose not to continue on city council.
Now, De Leon's house is actually a few houses down, as demonstrators are not allowed to be directly in front of it. So they are in front of neighbors' homes. And folks out here tell me that the neighborhood has actually been very welcoming, dropping off pizza and donuts throughout the day and letting them know that it's okay if they camp out here on the sidewalk. Now, the city council meeting scheduled for Tuesday. That is when they will be selecting a new president of the city council, a temporary term to last through the end of the year. Leslie.
Joy, thank you so much. Of course, you can stay with KCAL 9 News on air. And
that's City Council. That's today, right?
Yeah, we're going to have that for next week. We'll have a little clip from that for next week for sure. But I'm not sure what went down, to be honest with you. I haven't been on Twitter a lot today. Otherwise, I would have a better update. But yeah, I love that. You are required to be 300 feet from the home of whoever, or the private home of whoever you're protesting. Really 300 feet from any residence, but if the neighbors are welcoming and saying you can camp out on their lawn, then you can camp out on their lawn. There really is nothing the city can do about it. So good for them. Good on them. They got pizza. They got donuts. They got coffee. I mean, what else do you need? You got a protest? Just get a guitar and let's go. What do you got, 3?
Yeah,
I'm down.
I just think they need to. I don't know. All these people need to step down. I don't know. I don't know what possessed them to when they were conducting I don't know if it was official business or semi-official business on a group call with their coworkers. I don't know what possessed them to behave in this way, even in a private conversation over coffee that's inappropriate. But this is seems like a few of them got together for a conference call, and it's just bad news. Bad news. Yeah.
And one of them just looks like I would bet routinely records these things, or has a staffer record these things, and the recording got out, more than likely because this, as my wife said, the staffer would just look at this and be like, yeah, no. Because we both worked for elected officials at some point, and I asked her, what's the line, right? Like, you're loyal to your boss. You have a job, right? You want to keep your job. You want to be loyal to your boss. You want your boss to look bad, generally speaking, right? But that's usually if they say a faux pas or something, or they misspell something in a newsletter, not this, right? So I asked her, what's the line? She's like, this is the line. This is when you would absolutely share this or get this out, because it's more important than your boss or that one person. So
yeah,
that's
sure.
Our guess. That's our best guess, is that and her best guess, the good wife, that this was a staffer that leaked this.
Yeah, for sure. Because one of the people that was involved in it obviously didn't leak it. It was certainly somebody in their office.
Yeah.
So what's up with the underground casino in San Jose?
I'm shocked to find that there's gambling going on in San Jose. Well, SJPD seems to have uncovered an undercover casino in a couple different locations. They did a good, I guess, or they caught a crime. Well, we'll find out more.
Police say they had been watching these homes for weeks, trying to gather enough evidence, and when they finally moved in, it was a huge relief for neighbors. Sky Ranger was overhead when police raided the homes in East San Jose on Thursday, one on Marchant Court, a second on North Capitol Avenue.
What these homes turned into is a den of criminal activity.
Police say gambling, drug use, and assaults were occurring at these homes. They arrested 48-year-old Nu Nguyen and 53-year-old Anita Nguyen for running the operations. Police say Nu was already on their radar.
On September 4th, he actually stabbed one of the people that was there visiting this illegal operation. That person subsequently reported the incident. He was stabbed at least one time. It was a non-life-threatening injury, but that just goes to show what was occurring at some of these locations.
Police also arrested 5 other people who were inside the homes during the raids. Both homes are in residential areas, both less than a mile from a school. The Capitol Avenue location had a busted front window this morning. Police say it was likely from the raid, and it has an alterations sign in front. Officers say sometimes these are covers for illegal activity.
Just shocked that's even happening here in our neighborhood, you know. Yeah, I'm glad they stopped it before it got even worse.
Police have been busting illegal gambling operations for years, some in cafes, others inside laundromats. Now,
laundromats? That's awesome.
Neighborhoods, detectives are sure.
I mean, what else are you going to do while you're waiting for your laundry?
Neighbors worry about the other crimes that come with this illegal activity.
Nothing good will come out of that, but I'm glad it stopped.
Police say they might not have the staffing levels to go after those illegal casinos constantly, but they vow to keep following the leads when the tips come in. In San Jose, Damian Trujillo, NBC Area News.
So there you go. Watch out if you're doing crimes in casinos and in your apartments. You know, the SJPD might find you if they have the staffing levels.
I'm like kind of okay with small casino in the laundromat, to be perfectly honest. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, yeah. we should make that legal, because like you were saying, what else are you going to do while you're waiting for your laundry? I'd pop a couple quarters in. I don't even like to gamble.
Absolutely, and then tax the shit out of it, right? 10%, so 2.5 cents on that quarter comes to the city for good things, parks, and public transportation and other shit like that, right? The good stuff.
The good stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff. But yeah, and just another example of what's lurking just beneath the surface here in San Jose. You never know what you're going to find. But yeah, if you're at a laundromat and you see a slot machine, maybe just give it a pull. Don't call the cops.
Yeah, if you're in a laundromat, you did not see a slot machine.
Right? What slot machine? I didn't see nothing. So that's what's happening on the east side. Now we're going to go over to the west side of San Jose and see what's happening over there, where the good residents of Willow Glen are finding out what a gel gun is. I didn't know what it was either, to be honest with you, but I'm also from Willow Glen, so that tracks.
School day. Someone shot a gel gun into a South Bay middle school today. Some of those pellets, which are made of gel, actually hit some of the kids. Parents say they're just glad no one got seriously hurt. NBC Barry's Scott Budman joins us live outside of Willow Glen Middle School. And Scott, so it's shot at the school with this gel gun? I've never even heard of a gel gun.
Yeah, they're soft pellet gel guns, Jessica, and someone was driving nearby here outside Willow Glen Middle School in front of the school when they shot soft pellets from that gun into a classroom. A few of those pellets hit some of the students and a teacher. We're told nobody was hurt and nobody is saying who did this, but the school sent a letter today to parents letting them know what happened. People here say it's not the only time they've heard of this type of gel gun being used in this area.
I think they call them Orbeez. You soak them in water and they swell up. And they have these guns that shoot them, sort of like paintball guns. And
who is this guy? San Jose? Like, he's not a parent? Like, who is he? Just a random dude?
I don't know, but he seems to know what he's talking about.
To the gun.
Seriously?
And you can shoot them.
Orbeez.
Like you can do little paintball pellets. Supposedly they don't hurt and they're kind of harmless. They basically just make a mess.
I think he's the shooter.
Again, nobody hurt today. San Jose
He's trying to distract.
They are looking for whoever shot those gel
hiding in plain sight
into the classroom. In Willow Glen, Scott Budman.
You missed him. He's hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Don't fire projectiles into at a school of any kind.
Seriously, God, at any one, right? Like, you're gonna want to shoot off some projectiles. Go where there's no people or pets or animals or whatever. Just like, shoot into a damn rock or something.
But I think the guy that knew everything about the kind of weapon that was used should be on the short list.
Yeah, he definitely sounds like a person of interest to me. I don't know. I don't get why he was there in the first place, right? Like, very suspicious that he's in the neighborhood at all, right? Does he live there? Is he a parent? Is he an employee of the school? I don't know. I do know the principal at that middle school. He's a kick, so it sucks that he had to deal with this. He's a really good guy. But he more than likely handled it pretty well. He's a good communicator, so hopefully the parents... I haven't heard a whole lot of fluffle about this, which is interesting, so maybe they handled it pretty well. But usually there's something like this in that neighborhood, Tony, Willow Glen, right? This would set people off. This is the kind of thing where people will be saying on Nick's Store, it's just like the East Side. It's like a drive-by shooting.
I mean, it probably was someone from a car.
Right. Right. Anyways, just to give you the context of the different type of crime and malfeasance that we deal with in different parts of the city, and then how people react to it also.
Yeah, whatever. I guess if nobody was hurt, that's good. But like, we live in a country where people are terrified of like somebody coming and shooting anywhere where there's a crowd, actually. And so like, even if like it's not a harmless prank, even though nobody was injured and apparently the type of device used was unlikely to injure somebody, that's not really the point here. It's more like, it's more like you're scaring the shit out of people.
Right. And not that it's a pathway crime or something like that, but just okay, fine, it's a harmless quote unquote pellet gun that just makes a mess, as the guy said. The symbolism is very important, right? And just the act itself is very important. So whether or not you intended to hurt anyone, you could, and you very well did. So yeah, let's be better.
So up next, we got better have your shit together election officials, and this is in Contra Costa County. We'll just let this roll. It looks like they're trying to assure everybody that the election will be fine. But by assuring everyone that the election will be fine, they're giving some room to the idea that it might not be.
Correct.
Taking every step it can to make sure voters know that their ballot is safe and that every vote will be accurately counted. Now, tensions are particularly high after the recent arrest of a software company CEO. Turns out that company makes the software that Contra Costa County uses to manage poll workers. As NBC Bay Area's Jody Hernandez tells us, the county says if you vote there, you don't have any reason to be concerned.
1,666.
Yes. Contra Costa County tested its Dominion ballot tabulating machines this morning, a state requirement to ensure accuracy before the election.
My experience with Dominion has been 100% every time. I can't recall a time that the system has come up with an incorrect logic and accuracy.
In fact, Dominion is now suing the former president and several conservative news outlets for repeating false claims about its voting machines, claims highlighted yesterday at the January 6th hearings.
You can press a button for Trump and the vote goes to Biden. What kind of a system is this?
Now a new issue is raising concerns among some voters after an election software company CEO was arrested in Southern California on charges of grand theft and embezzlement.
At issue here is the theft of personal identifying information of election workers in Los Angeles County.
Contra Costa County does use that company's software to manage its poll workers, but says they don't collect Social Security numbers like Los Angeles does.
We are confident that our poll workers' data has not been breached. And the fact that we don't collect the personal identifiable information that is the subject of the breach, I feel is very important for people to know.
Despite all the reassurance, election officials say they've received some aggressive calls from voters and a threatening email warning, get ready for hell to break loose in Martinez.
When it crosses a line to threatening people or individuals for their livelihood, is kind of out of line.
The election worker who has received some of the alarming messages says he's shaken. He spoke to us but didn't want to appear on camera.
It does make you think twice about stepping out of the office, who's around, just being aware of your surroundings.
The email was taken as a threat It was directed towards a specific employee, and we did report it to the FBI.
Contra Costa County's election officials say they're going the extra mile to be transparent and to ensure their systems are tamper-proof and accurate. In Contra Costa County, Jody Hernandez, NBC Bay Area News.
So they did a couple things in that news story that I thought were a little bit irresponsible. One, they brought up Dominion as if anybody knows anything about like the Dominion voting machines other than the conspiracy theories about them. Like, I don't know much about the Dominion voting machines, right? I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories going around about them. And it just seems like the news here just did a bad job of like whatever the hell it is they were trying to do. And they're basically just feeding into conspiracy theory about this by even running this story the way they did.
Yeah, I mean, this could also be a typical local news story in that it's derived from a press release, probably from the Contra Costa Registrar of Voters, because they felt the need to come out and say, oh, well, yeah, we're using, maybe one person emailed them and said, you're using this software, all hell's going to break loose. So they feel they need to come out with a press release and a big push to say, oh, yeah, we're using it and it's totally cool and everything's great, and everything's fine, and it's great, thanks. And it's not necessary. And they've created a story that doesn't need to be told in this place. And the news is just sort of rolling with their press release and not really digging too deep, right? And they just, they tell the story for them. So I would actually probably blame the registrar more than the news, although the news should do a better job of creating a more three-dimensional story. Absolutely. But this is the local news, and that's sort of how.
Right. I mean, it's
sort of their extent.
It was a quick hit. They could have also just done a better job by focusing on the fact that people are harassing the election workers and not like giving the lead in, explaining what we've all been exposed to for the last almost 2 years now. It's almost 2 years since the last election. Like everybody, like people already know, and it just like lends credence to it. And I think like people who aren't like super like connected to that stuff might go like digging for like problems with Dominion, and now all of a sudden they're on Rumble or something watching some Dinesh D'Souza video about how people are like harvesting ballots or whatever, and it's just not good, not great.
They're getting radicalized, right? And really, and like you said, they really buried the lead on this story. The fact that elections officials, these folks who are not getting paid tons of money, right? They're public servants at the end of the day. They have a really thankless job. It's a really big job. It's a really important job. It's a very visible job, more so than anything else that like a county normally administrator does. And they are getting death threats, like election workers, like poll workers, people who are just like, not even the administrators, like the people in the front lines are getting death threats. I've seen it happen where they're getting harassed at the counter, these elections workers, when I come in to do my work, when I'm helping out on campaigns, and file some paperwork, I see the harassment that they get. Frankly, there have been times when I've been so frustrated with election filing regulations that I've given them shit, right? And I've been there, kind of griping on them, but never in any sort of way like we're seeing now, right? I'm not giving them death threats. I'm just having a professional disagreement, right? Like this is awful, where their families are getting threatened. They're threatened. People threatened to show up at their house, and it shouldn't be happening to elections workers, man. But we just don't know it's happening. And so you don't really see the public outcry over it because, like you said, they buried the lead.
Right. The response, and we're going to have to move on here real quick, but the responsible way to report that story is to go over, put the lead with the threats, and then say these threats are happening because of the false claim that there was massive election fraud in the 2020 election.
Correct. And you don't need to repeat Trump. You don't need to play that Trump clip like at all, right? You don't really need to allude to that or play it at all. You're giving an audience to it, right?
Right. And I mean, they just want them clicks. I mean, they're no different than we are in the end, right?
Absolutely.
But at least we cop to just wanting them clicks. At least we cop to being like shit disturbers and whatnot.
Anything we can do to double our viewership to 2 people is going to be, it's top of my list.
Totally worth it. Totally
every one of my 21 Twitter followers was a really hard-earned follow. So
my Twitter is you know what? Be glad that you're not. My Twitter's a disaster.
Really?
Now I just open it and there's like hundreds of mentions. Now my Twitter is a disaster. So be glad. Be glad
I know
that you're not.
I know
in the
something's
shit.
popping off on your account when I see I open mine and it's got like 15 or 20. This is a miracle for me mentions. So I know something's going on. because that ain't me. Anything I said that's causing those likes.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you couldn't get yourself on a reputable podcast network and you're associated with the likes of me. But them's the break. Should have won your election, Councilman. Should have won your election.
That's true. I'd be up on Crooked Media. They give me my own show, Pod Save San Jose. Well, shall we move down ballot and do a little deep dive like we were talking about last week?
Yeah, let's check out Proposition 30 because that's the only one of the propositions that I've read that I'm not even sure what to do with. So let's check out first from Cal Matters. They do a pretty good job of explaining the ballot measures. Let's check that out first.
California. It's known for its stunning beaches, redwood forests, sunny weather, and dirty air. It has some of the worst air quality in the country. State data shows that more than 90% of Californians breathe unhealthy levels of air pollutants. To reduce air pollution and greenhouse emissions, Governor Gavin Newsom has asked the Air Resources Board to ban the sale of all new gas-powered cars by 2035. So, how will the state meet its goal and who's going to pay for it? Voters will help decide this in November.
Hi, I'm Nadia Lopez. I cover the environment for Cal Matters, and this is Prop 30 explained in 1 minute.
Prop 30 would impose a 1.75% income tax increase on Californians making more than $2 million per year. The tax would generate up to $4.5 billion annually. Most of the money would go toward rebates for people buying zero-emission cars and to build more charging stations. Half of that funding will go to low and middle-income residents. A quarter of the money would provide funding to hire and train firefighters. The measure is backed by environmentalists and public health groups and is funded largely by the rideshare company Lyft. State regulations require Lyft and Uber drivers by 2030 to log 90% of their miles in electric vehicles. Supporters say the tax would generate much-needed funding to support wildfire prevention and help accelerate the transition to electric cars. They say the state's top earners should foot the bill since they're the ones most able to afford it. But opponents, including the state Republican Party and Governor Newsom, say Californians don't need more tax hikes because everyone is already feeling the effects of high inflation and surging gas prices. They argue that the tax would drive many residents out of the state to benefit a special interest, rideshare companies. Vote yes if you think millionaires should be taxed to help fund electric car rebates and more firefighters. Vote no if you don't.
To learn about this proposition and others, visit calmatters.org. To stay up to date on
So that's just kind of the broad strokes of it. Again, like I don't know, where I'm going to land on this one. I'm confused.
Shout out to Nadia Lopez, by the way, who the reporter there. She got her start in the South Bay with I think Spotlight. She was with San Jose Spotlight at one point. So good on her.
Really?
Moving up in the world. Yeah, it would seem to be pretty clear about what it's about and what it's designed to do and who it impacts. But then you see the folks aligning on either side. It's kind of interesting the way things are set up, and then you find out that Lyft is primarily the one financing it, and your whatever the spidey sense, right? The neck hairs, right? They kind of stand up, and you're like, there must be something going on here, right? There must be something that's benefiting them and their bottom line. They wouldn't spend the money. We wouldn't do all this work to put this on the ballot if there wasn't something in it for them directly. And there is, frankly. I mean, it does behoove them and benefit them to have more people buying electric cars because they're going to have to all have electric cars at some point, and Lyft is going to be required to have pretty much almost all miles logged on electric cars. So it does benefit them in the long run. It makes their lives easier. Doesn't give them any more money. Doesn't give them any more profits. But it certainly helps. But it's telling, I think, that they're the ones out there putting their heads out there on this one, and Uber is not necessarily, or DoorDash or the others who were concerned about AB 5 and the new labor laws, right? When they floated Prop 22, you don't see that same coalition here. Lyft is pretty much on their own, so with the environmentalists.
Well, let's see what ABC 7 has to say about all this.
Let's do it.
All right, coming up on the November ballot will be Proposition 30. This is a measure that could help give Californians subsidies for electric vehicles. And there's a big push in that direction. So the state Democratic Party supports it, but Governor Newsom does not. ABC 7 News anchor Liz Kreutz explains why that is the case and what you need to know about Prop 30.
Should taxes be raised on the wealthiest Californians in order to fund new climate projects? That's the question at the heart of Proposition 30. The measure would increase the tax on people making more than $2 million by 1.75%. That revenue would go towards funding electric vehicles, charging stations, and other infrastructure, as well as wildfire prevention.
This measure is fully funding existing state programs that accelerate the state's transition to clean vehicles and are making EVs accessible to all Californians.
Nick Josefowicz is the chief of policy at the Bay Area think tank Spur, which is supporting the measure. He says the tax is necessary if Californians want to hit its climate goals, including banning gas-powered cars by 2035.
That we need long-term stable funding to really get to grips with our air pollution and climate in the state.
The measure is backed by the California Democratic Party. The biggest financial contributor is Lyft. The rideshare company has poured roughly $15 million into the prop. The group's involvement has created a split among Democrats. Governor Gavin Newsom is fervently against the measure. In a statement, the governor said, Prop 30 is a special interest carve-out, a cynical scheme devised by a single corporation to funnel state income tax revenue to their company.
The question, more than anything, is not a question of whether the rich should pay their fair share. The question is, should the money be going for Lyft?
Matthew Rodriguez runs the No on 30 group. He says the measure is a ploy by Lyft to get taxpayers to help meet its state mandate to electrify their vehicle fleet. He also argues the state has already given huge investments into similar climate initiatives and that the measure is too limited in its scope.
There's a lot of priorities that we have in the state, and we can't be basically going to the ballot every single time to raise taxes for one company as opposed to the whole state.
Lyft said in a statement that environmental groups approached them about partnering on the measure, and the recent heat wave is a reminder of how urgent it is to address the climate crisis. Newsom's opposition has puzzled some Prop 30 supporters who say it would help fund the governor's own climate goals. California political reporter Jeremy White says there could be more behind Newsom's staunch opposition.
The point has definitely been made that this is the same governor who is touting his order requiring all new cars sold in California to be zero or low emission by 2035. But my understanding is that there's also a broader reluctance by the governor to look to tax increases right now, particularly given inflation and some of the recession warning signs we've seen on the horizon.
Liz Kreutz, ABC 7 News.
So I don't think the money just goes to Lyft. That was
that's the thing. It doesn't, and doesn't really directly at all. It goes to these incentive programs that aren't just benefiting. It's not just exclusively available to Lyft riders, right? It's available to anyone, probably in certain, income demographics too. I'm sure lower income demographics, and it creates more EV charging stations, which certainly helps Lyft drivers who are transitioning to electric vehicles. But again, does not directly help them. It helps everybody. It just so happens that it helps their business model. And then the fire protection really doesn't do anything for Lyft at all, like the training of firefighters.
Well, I mean, you can't really run a ride share in California if the whole state's on fire.
That's true. That's true. And the supply chain gets interrupted, all that jazz. But and then you add on to that this argument. Well, the governor doesn't want to get involved in raising taxes or new taxes. It's a tax on people making $2 million a year or more. And granted, that money is not. The dollar doesn't go as far as it used to, but if you're making $2 million a year, you're doing all right. So, and if it's $4.5 billion that's coming out of that, it's not a huge chunk out of your pocket, to be honest with you. And that these millionaire taxes, I don't know. I can't see how Gavin Newsom is out there fighting this unless he's out there shilling for the millionaires, the people who he had dinner with at the French Laundry, right? Oh, look at me. Now I'm jumping down that rabbit hole. But now it starts to track, right? Now it kind of starts to track.
Unless there's something going on we don't know about, like if there's a proposal he has that this kind of undercuts that gets out in front of something he was trying to do, which I think requires way less assumptions than other things that people might be other speculation people might be making about why he is against it. That he just has something that this kind of kneecaps him on something he wanted to do in 6 months through the legislature or something,
We'll find out a little more in the next story, but there's also there's a very big ego involved in governance and the folks who feel like they know what they're doing, right? Just like there is in we were talking about with any profession, right? They feel like they know what they're doing, and they don't like it when corporations come in and spend a bunch of money to put something on the ballot. They may not be a perfect piece of legislation, right? The professional legislators, the people that do this for a living and have been there for years, they might be able to craft a better piece of legislation, maybe with more public input, right? So they're offended that this measure could pass and come in and disrupt their plans, right? Like you said, disrupt their way of doing business, right? That's a lot of also what goes on here. And then they use the the governor uses other excuses like, oh, well, Lyft is a nefarious corporation trying to increase their profits, when really he's just offended that anyone would try to, force his hand or force the hand of government.
Yeah, because I just don't see a way in which this like immediately funnels money to anybody, particularly because it's not like Lyft is buying a fleet of cars. One of the criticisms of the ride sharing companies is that they make you buy the car, they make you maintain the car, and then they pay you as a contractor. So it's not like they're not even buying cars and getting like a rebate on the car themselves. So it's like there's no. I mean, I guess you could say that it benefits their drivers, but that's good.
Well, yeah, you could even say that they're doing a good, right? That they're doing a good by their drivers. They're helping their drivers, fulfill this requirement that the state has put upon them. Frankly, maybe they wouldn't have mandated that their riders get EVs, so they're like, okay, guys, we know you're mandated to get an EV, so here we're going to get this incentive out there for you. But it benefits everyone. It's not just Lyft. Like Uber drivers can apply for this. I'm really surprised that Uber isn't in on this, to be honest with you. But who knows?
Uber's had a very bad reputation the whole time. So maybe whoever's in charge over there is like, let's just shut the hell up about any kind
let's
of
give a bunch of money
stuff.
to Lyft to do. Yeah, let's give a bunch of money to Lyft to run this shit for us.
I think that's probably illegal, but I mean, I just mean that they're like, I think that somebody over there, like some cooler head has prevailed over there because Uber has been doing a really good job of shutting the fuck up, like about everything. Like you haven't heard about them at all in the news since they've gotten their new CEO. So maybe that's true. Maybe they're like laying low, and that's why.
Well, they got what they want. They got what they wanted with the carve out from the labor laws. So they're excited. Well, if you want to know why Governor Newsom is opposed, hopefully this story from CBS Local. I think this is local down in SoCal, perhaps, or Sacramento. Sorry, they're going to give us a little more information.
There's a ballot measure this November promising to boost funding for wildfire prevention and other climate-related programs.
Those are top priorities for Governor Newsom, but the measure actually has him siding with his political enemies. CBS 13's Madison Keevy is getting answers on why, live in Sacramento tonight. Madison.
Yeah, that's the big question. What is going on here? Supporters of Prop 30 say that it could save hundreds of thousands of acres of land from burning in wildfires every year if it's passed, because there'd be more money for fuel reduction and as well as hiring more firefighters. The governor says, though, not so fast, that really this measure would line the pockets of a company known as Lyft. The firefight against the mosquito fire picked up this week. More than 3,000 personnel are at work to contain what's now the state's largest wildfire of the year. Wildfires like this put smoke into the air miles from the front lines. And the firefighters who work round the clock will likely not get the chance to go home for 21 to 28 days at a time.
But when you don't know you're going to get home to your wife or your family, I'm having a daughter here in 2 months, it just adds that stress that we don't need.
Prop 30 would impose a personal income tax increase on Californians who make more than $2 million a year to fund a list of climate initiatives. The goal is to clean up the state's polluted air, dirtied from catastrophic wildfires and gas-powered vehicles. The measure includes incentives to subsidize zero-emission vehicles.
They show like a fancy sports car.
He's against the measure because it would offer a tax break to Lyft, who backs the measure. On wildfires, 20% of the total revenue that could be brought in by the new tax on high-income taxpayers would go to wildfire response and prevention, an issue voters think about.
It comes to mind a lot because, it's not getting any better right now with everything with fires. Yeah, fires are crazy right now.
A Public Policy Institute of California poll found when likely voters are read the ballot title and what it's about, 55% said they'd vote yes. 40% said they'd vote no.
Children, seniors, outdoor workers like our firefighters, those with heart and lung diseases, and lower income communities are facing greater risk due to these extreme wildfire smoke events.
Prop 30 would put more money towards these efforts. Opponents of the measure say there's a state surplus, no need to add a new tax. There's two TV ads going around right now. One in support of Prop 30 has the face and voice of a firefighter talking about the crisis. The other, no on Prop 30, has Governor Newsom in it, not mincing his words. And both sides hope that those ads are emotional enough for voters to remember when they hit the polls in November.
Yeah, lots of ad money being spent right now, that's for sure. Madison, thanks.
Okay, that didn't really say much about like why Newsom is against Prop 30. It just like kind of laid out the same things we saw in the other clips.
Yeah, no, and again, I think this it's primarily because it's really not hard to tell why he's so adamantly against it. Like I can understand shilling for the rich and your rich donors, right, and not wanting to increase their taxes for whatever reason to maybe help lift. But that's the kind of situation where you just don't endorse, you just stay out of the race, you don't get involved, right? You don't really, even if it's something you like, you don't promote it too much, right? Too heavily. And you just stay out of it. You don't weigh in. You don't go to the mattresses and do an ad, a TV ad, a statewide TV ad about it, right? With all the fancy graphics, unless you're really opposed to it. You're right. There's something going on here. To make him line up with a GOP, now it also is worth pointing out, speaking of teachers unions, CTA, the California Teachers Association, is also opposed to this. So there's something happening here, and I would love to find out what it is. I just don't quite know. So hopefully we'll find out before the election. But in the meantime, I feel like supporting this measure myself, but I'll leave it up to our listener to make their own decisions.
So we got one more clip on it, and it talks about how the Democratic Party in California seems to be aligning with yes, and again, the governor seems to be on the no side.
Yes.
Yay, 30! San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo standing with labor unions today supporting Proposition 30. It would raise income taxes by 1.75% for people earning more than $2 million a year. That could generate around $5 billion a year. Most of the money would go to programs that help people buy electric cars and install charging stations. 20% would be used to boost CAL FIRE staffing and wildfire prevention and response programs. Liccardo now joins Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf and the state's Democratic Party in supporting it, saying it's time to act with urgency on climate change.
And if someone's got a better solution, let's hear it. But right now, we've got to do everything we can to support our firefighters who are out there and do what we can to electrify our transportation system, because that's our only path forward.
But it's in stark contrast with Governor Gavin Newsom, who not only opposes it,
Prop 30 is being advertised as a climate initiative,
but is the face of the No on Prop 30 campaign in TV ads running across the state. He argues Prop 30, as it's written, would benefit rideshare company Lyft, which has now spent $25 million to get voters to say yes.
Yeah, no.
When asked about it in San Jose last week, Newsom questioned the need for a tax increase that would benefit select corporations to do something the state is already doing.
And so there was one large corporation, a wonderful company, that's going to be one of the lion's share beneficiaries of raising everybody else's taxes to direct money.
Everyone else?
In an area where we just passed the largest appropriation and the largest budget in U.S. history, $53.9 billion for our transition to electric vehicles and climate change.
But supporters argue it would help all Californians by making electric cars more affordable.
This is not a giveaway to Lyft. That's a very small portion. Those drivers are all private business people in their own rights who have their own cars. But what about everyone else who's driving, who's lower income, trying to get to work and needs a vehicle, and they need to move to electric? This is the kind of program that will help them.
You'll find Prop 30 on your November ballot. In the South Bay, Ian Cole, NBC Bay Area News.
Everybody else, that's people that make $2 million a year. That's not everybody else.
No, definitely not. And it's everybody else in someone's perspective, maybe, but yeah, definitely not in any reasonable perspective.
And the guy at the end, had the right point, kind of, I think. He was like, hey, this is, the people who drive for Lyft are actually have to pay for their own car. So,
right. And these are folks that we usually, folks like us are trying to help, right? The people who are low income. They're driving for Lyft for a reason, right? They need a job. They need a gig. So let's help them out. Anyway, so that's the deep dive into Prop 30. Have you been swayed, been moved, Producer Dave, in any direction on the measure, or are you still sort of trying to figure it out? You waiting for more information?
It was surprising to see Sam Liccardo standing in front of a bunch of labor people.
Labor unions. Yeah, that was hilarious.
but I mean, the flip side of that is that he is like politically ambitious, and he's going to probably toe the party line as much as he can as we go forward, and he gets out of he gets out of his job as the San Jose mayor and has like more like aspirations of higher office. So it was just weird to see him with the labor people, because that's usually the people who are against him on most things for city politics.
Yeah, some issues make strange bedfellows. This is very much in his lane, and very much something he would tout, right? Like environmental resilience measures, things like this. This is certainly up his alley, and it helps. It definitely certainly doesn't hurt his relationship with labor. Doesn't hurt his profile to be seen in that space. And there were a lot of groups there that I wouldn't normally associate with labor, but it's good to see. It's good to see that we can have that kind of camaraderie. But of course, then there's defectors from the bunch over to the other side for whatever reason.
Yeah. So what we have next here is it's a candidate form. We're obviously not going to get to all of it. We'll maybe do like the first 10 minutes of it or something like that.
Yeah, intros only would be fine, I think. So this is the only city council race in San Jose that I would say is super contested. I think there will be one at least incumbent who has a really tough go of it. But in this case, this is an open seat for the District 3 seat. It's downtown San Jose, currently represented by Raul Perales, who is terming out. He was not successful in his mayoral run. So these are the two candidates that are vying to replace him. And it's gotten very interesting, shall we say, of late. It's not going to come up here, but we'll hopefully have a clip on it sooner or later. But a very racist and tropey mailer has just landed in this race, and we'll let you guess which candidate sent it out. But we'll do intros and learn a little bit more about them. This is Terry Christensen, former professor from San Jose State Political Science Department, who has a show on Create TV called Valley Politics. And this is his, it's sort of a competitor, I guess, of ours, only not anywhere near as fun. But this is his District 3 candidates forum.
Our guests today are Irene Smith and Omar Torres, the top 2 of 5 candidates for San Jose City Council District 3 in the June primary. They now face each other in the November runoff election. By way of background, District 3 is comprised of downtown San Jose and surrounding neighborhoods. The population of the district is 45% Latino, 26% Asian, 24% white, and 3% black. And it's a growing district with a lot of new high-rise housing planned or under construction. Let's meet the candidates.
We need an intro like this. Only set to, big small towns.
We should ask for a tour of their studio.
We can certainly get it. I think they were changing studios, but we can certainly get it once it's...
Welcome Omar Torres and Irene Smith. We've asked both of you to keep your answers to about a minute if you can. Follow-ups are acceptable. We're going to have some questions from community members as we go along, and we will have a tough lightning round of questions eventually. But let's just start with why each of you is running and what you hope to bring to the City Council. Omar, start with you.
Absolutely. So I'm running for San Jose City Council for many reasons. I grew up in an underserved community called the Guadalupe, Washington neighborhood. And it was a neighborhood where every single day I saw prostitution, I saw crime, I saw drug dealing. My friends were joining gangs. And
well, they gentrified all that shit out.
Throughout that process, we said enough is enough.
Not quite in that neighborhood yet.
And many of us from all ages organized, worked with our city and our county to bring in resources into this severely underserved community over 25 years ago. And since then, we've gone a little bit safer. We've created open spaces. We've created public spaces like libraries and youth centers that are extremely important for underserved communities. And that's why I'm running. I want to bring the community voice to San Jose City Hall. And I've continued to do that for over 25 years, organizing underserved communities and bringing them to the table and making important decisions for their families, their jobs, and their livelihood. So that's why I want to be on the San Jose City Council.
Okay, thanks, Irene.
I'm running because my neighborhood and my
D3 is in a crisis. We've asked for action for a long time, and there hasn't been any sense of urgency at all from the city. So from our perspective, the city is pretty much stuck in the muck, and they're repeating over and over what they've been doing. They're pouring more mud into the hole that they've dug, and then they're asking for more money to dig themselves out. And if we look at this pattern, this system, we have to ask ourselves who is benefiting from this and who's not benefiting. And from my perspective, it's big that benefits. It's big government that benefits, it's big business that benefits, it's big nonprofits, and it's big special interests that benefit. And the folks that are losing, those are me, those are my neighbors. That's the guy that's living on the sidewalk and somebody's asking him to stay there and live there for another 5 years until we build housing. It's the couple that's looking for an apartment that's affordable. It's the small business owner that needs to be able to survive, and they're just inundated with bureaucracy. And from my perspective, D3 needs a brand new voice, a different perspective that can shake off this mud and have a call to action. And I'm running because of my D3 recovery plan, and I think that's the beginning of our answers.
Well, we'll probably get into that plan eventually.
Okay, yeah, just doing the intros was good. I already know who I prefer. I like the gentleman more because she's like big government and big business, and it's just like, oh, these are just talking points. This is all boilerplate that you could get off of like any third way, both sides kind of like website if you want to run for office somewhere and you want to appeal to people who are just they want to feel like they're smarter than everybody. And
I wouldn't be surprised if that's where she got it, frankly.
From some third way group, some third way type of group.
Yeah, I don't believe she has. I have to check her for financial forms, but I don't believe she has, a real professional consultant. I think she's doing a lot of the thinking on this campaign herself, and that's a really dangerous thing for a candidate to get into, especially one like Irene, who is a community activist, kind of I don't want to say a NIMBY at all. She's a very interesting cat. Like there are parts of that speech that if you just cut it out, right, and carve it out and plug it as its own thing. Talking about the little guy, the populist sort of angle, right? The person on the corner, right? The couple trying to afford a house. That's really resonant with a lot of people, right? It's just like what you're saying. What you're talking about was sort of the more, right-wing tropey kind of language she had at the beginning. And then this whole metaphor of mud, it's going to come back when we talk about her mailer, if we get some visuals on that soon. But it's a lot of the sort of language that she's putting out there because her opponent is Latino, right? He's brown. It's very obvious. And there's a lot of shit being said about him that is couched in these kind of dog whistly things like mud, right? Like we need to get out of the mud. We need to get out of the we need to get past this filthy district we have now with the Latino council member who's there right now, by the way, who's terming out. Like how much he feel to be slandered like this and said that he's running his district into the mud, right? So there's this definite thread of like white saviorhood going on here and Karenism and white fragility. So it's disturbing to see. It looks as though Omar is in good shape, but we shall see he did very well in the primary. We'll see what happens. You'll also be happy to know he will be the first openly gay member of the council since Ken Yeager.
Nice.
So that's very good to see. It'd be great to have some LGBTQ plus representation. So yeah, more to come. But I think we all know where at least where the down ballot folks stand on this one.
Right. And I think for another thing, because we're kind of up against it here, I just want to follow up on a story we covered twice or three times, actually. We first covered it because it was one of the most down ballot things we ever covered, where a guy got busted in his like auto shop with a bunch of pipe bombs. And then his attorney was like, this is just his hobby. And we were like, wait, what? These are hobbyist pipe bombs? And it turned out that it wasn't just the guy's hobby because he was plotting to firebomb the state Democratic headquarters in Northern California. So that was not a hobby. And he is, he's going through the courts, and it appears that he has been asked to take a psych evaluation. This is also one of the most Echoplex media-ish things ever, because we ended up stopping our coverage of a certain man named Austin Bennett after the psych evaluation saga. So this is just, we're just kind of keeping an eye on this. This was one of our, I wouldn't say one of our better stories, but definitely one of the stories that more like kind of represents like what we're doing and the kinds of things we're looking for. I'm just real glad that this guy didn't actually get to firebomb anything.
Yes, true. But we will certainly follow up. I think this literally broke like today, which is why there's no video yet. This will be on the local news. They'll do a follow up on this one because it's one of those juicy ones they like to get. They gets the clicks.
Yeah, we'll have some video hits on this next week. So, Councilman, as you do, you want to read us out this week?
Absolutely. Well, Producer Dave, I want to thank you as always for running the dials on Down Ballot. You can tune in here every week at 7:30 Pacific, almost every week, except when you can't. So please subscribe on Twitch, download the podcast on your podcatcher of choice, and be sure to tune in for Local Love coming right up after a little break as we move into the evening portion of the locals here on Echoplex Media. I'm going to kick it over to Audible Smoke, and please get vaccinated, wear a mask. Pants are totally optional. Have a great night.
Time to get the party started. Pick up my phone just to check and see who's calling. Dress up real nice for the ladies at the bar, and I'm driving in my car just to get to where they are. Here at the local scene is where I plant my feet. It's where I smoke my cigarette and I hold my drink. I look at all my friends, they're all blazing greens. They're at the front of the stage waiting for MTV. Where are those guys who's standing next to me with a pipe in his hand ready to blaze for me? About 5 minutes later we're all singing Queen. Now get the fuck up on stage and rock the scene. Yeah, we do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. We do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy that band. I turn and head back to the bar for a refill, man, because you know where we are. We're headed out to the car to smoke another one and another one. Now just when the magic starts kicking in, I hear relapse playing, you know it's time to head in. Alright everybody, now it's time to grab a new drink. Spark it if you got it and then pass it to me. Yeah, we do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. We do what we want to do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy that band. Last up on the bill for the show tonight is Down and Dirty at 5, so we're headed outside to spark up another joint. Now who's got my lighter? Stoner E, of course. Shouldn't you be inside? I'm all up in this bitch, being who I gotta be. I'm fucked up like the U.S. economy. The truth is that I don't think logically. Stoner E take you on a psychedelic odyssey. Now inside motherfuckers is rocking me, and outside shit we smoke a lot of broccoli. Rocky the roller, yo, that sexy girl be jocking me. Ain't too drunk to fuck, but I'll probably do it sloppily. We do what we want to do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy the band. We do what we want to do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band.